Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Contingent Esports Twitch channel. We are here with the UML. This is week number 2, and it's going to be Contingent Esports' premier team up against a Forgotten Kingdom. I'm Nyarko, going to be your play-by-play for the evening alongside the illustrious Nakhana here on Color, and we are already jumping on into the draft. What do you want to see out of these picks and bans?
Um, I'm looking for aggression. I'm looking for a lot of damage, and hopefully we'll see some tanks. I don't know.
Tanks and damage. I think that's usually the building blocks for any good team comp, at least in my opinion here. Already, we're actually seeing a lot of these higher damage picks getting banned out in this initial phase. Darius and Yasuo so far, the knockaways for Contingent on blue side. Meanwhile, AFK taking out that Viego and Varus so far. So already some pretty interesting dynamics already coming to the fray here. A lot of bans based less upon what is strong in the meta right now and much more upon what these specific players are piloting.
Yeah, I mean, get that Varus out of here. We don't want to see him here. I want to see if AFK bans another V champion. Let's see it. Do it.
Yeah,
Who
for
else
sure.
starts
I
with a
mean,
V?
that is one strategy if you just want to limit yourself and what you're going to ban. But unfortunately, they're going to be moving up the alphabet by one letter, banning out that Udyr there, and now we are going into picks. Contingent snapping up that Jin as their first selection.
Goodness me, that's a brave first pick. I don't know if I would first pick Jin, but more power to these guys for sure.
I do think that in recent patches, we're getting to a point where utility in the AD carry role is perfectly fine to go for. I am still surprised to see the Jin so high prio for Contingent. AFK kind of has the run of the roost now for something a little bit more meta. Kaisa going to be what goes into the hands of PVS there.
I love seeing a good Jin and I love seeing a good Kaisa. I'm interested to see some I don't know, some interesting ults from both of them, I'd say.
For sure. I mean, very different styles of ults as well. We've been seeing Kaisa come out a lot with dive oriented compositions because she can kind of follow up on big engages. And AFK selecting that Hecarim as her second pick, that definitely is a means by which to get on into a fight.
That's true. Hecarim has undergone some changes recently, but I don't think that it's going to impact his overall power level too much.
I agree. Yeah, he's just so good at setting up team fights. He's great in a coordinated environment. And so while I do see a little bit of a hit to his solo queue win rates, overall I think he's still an incredibly powerful champion and a really solid pickup for AFK. Meanwhile, Contingent side going to go with that Mordekaiser. This definitely has some flex potential, but especially at the level at which the UML is being played at. I imagine this is probably going to go top lane, and Potato God is going to go to a different champion for the jungler.
Yeah, I'm a Mordekaiser's always one of those picks where you're like, yes, I'm gonna have to build a QSS sometime this game.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of good QSS targets as well. And kind of taking any of these champions that Mordekaiser would love to Death Realm off of their regular build path to have to build that item, I think is going to be pretty valuable, especially if you back it up with a lot more damage and a lot more threats in other positions. LeBlanc coming out, going to be going into the mid lane for Contingent Esports. RE10 has a history on this champion, has always performed well on it, so I'm happy to see it come out here. And meanwhile, the Forgotten Kingdom going to go a little bit more scale oriented in that role as well. Ionian Tempest grabbing that Cassidon. We got the Void pair there with the Kaisa as well.
Yeah, I see that we're gonna see a lot of dashing around in the mid lane, blinking here and there, etc.
Yeah, I do like the Cassidon pick because I think post level 6 it is relatively safe up against the LeBlanc. LeBlanc obviously has fantastic burst potential, and there is a chance that they will just be able to get an insurmountable lead through the momentum of that early game. But I think that Cassidon here is a relatively stable pick for AFK. Obviously, they won't have a ton of priority, but they have enough force elsewhere, especially with that Kaisa Hecarim pickup, that I think they should be fine. Looking at the second round of bounds now, we are seeing a pinching of that jungle role there on the side of AFK, trying to make sure that Cuddle Snuffles on Mordekaiser is going to be the way that Contingent actually takes that pick. And they are, in fact, betting that Potato God still has yet to select their champion. Meanwhile, Contingent gonna be knocking away that Aatrox, incredibly strong champion right now, almost constantly in the meta, pick or ban. And so I'm happy to see it knocked away here alongside the Kled.
For sure, and it looks like we're gonna see a Gnar coming out. I love seeing Gnar. And I feel like definitely on AFK side, we're seeing a good bit of scaling coming out. So I'm interested to see if Contingent can answer with any scaling picks of their own.
For sure, Contingent definitely a little bit more early game oriented right now, especially up against that Kaisa and Kassadin. Jin will definitely have to kind of lock down that lane early. We'll see what support selection is going to go along with it because of that fact. And I think that Contingent, giving their hovers right now, are actually still looking to keep high tempo in that early game and hopefully dominate out AFK. Trundle, what is going to be the lock in here for Potato God. And I really like this champion. Great duelist in that jungle, can actually work against the Hecarim early to try to get them out of the game. And now we move on to that support role where this may be where we see the scaling come in.
For sure. And it's not too often that I see supports being the last picked, but here we are. I'm interested to see if we can expect some interesting plays from either bot lane early in the game.
Yeah, and the Renata Glass selection going to come in for Contingent here. I like this pick. It does kind of speak to that potential for scaling that I'm talking about. It will answer back very nicely in that late game versus the Kaisa, versus the Gnar. So I'm happy that it comes out. The question is, what is it going to be the response? And with the Nautilus on the table, it looks like that's actually going to be the most action-packed lane in the early game for AFK.
I am so excited to see this. I'm not gonna lie to you, I want to see a Renata ult late game that causes the death of at least one person.
I feel like we don't actually get to see that often. It really does kind of feel like Renata's ult, for how much people talked about it upon her release, has kind of been relegated to the role of solely being there as kind of a nice little wave of CC. And a lot of her utility actually comes out in her E, in her Q, as a means of crowd control and shielding. And her W is there, but kind of along with her ult, those are the two explosive abilities that really have been downplayed, especially in recent patches.
It's true, but I think if we get late enough into the game with that Kaisa and that Kassadin, I think we could see it happen. More so with the Kaisa, obviously, but you can't have everything.
Yeah, for sure. No, I do think that this is a solid answer. Don't get me wrong. It's just a matter of AFK having a very stable early and mid game for how well their composition scales. And I hope that Contingent will be able to pull this out, but it's going to require quite the gold lead to overcome Ionian Tempest on that Kassadin. It's such a scary champion right now. Scales fantastically, relatively safe. And because you have the Gnar, because you have that Nautilus, you have a fantastic front line to play around in that early game, so that you actually have the potential to get to your monstrous level 16 power spike.
And we've also got to see what the early game goes like for Contingent here. I feel like from the way we're looking at it now, this game could go one of two ways, you know? Early game control or late game control.
Mhm. No, I totally agree with that. It's just a matter of how far ahead it feels like Contingent needs to get within the first 20 minutes of the game for me to feel comfortable in saying that they have the advantage. Usually, when you see a scaling composition, there's still some amount of insurance on the opposing side. But here, Contingent really has gone virtually all in on a powerful early game, being able to just snipe down and get gold over to champions like the LeBlanc. So they're going to be able to actually deal with the Kaisa late, is kind of their only hope outside of really just smashing each individual laning state. But yeah, overall, it's definitely a strategy. It's just a question of whether or not Contingent is going to be able to pull it off here in the second week of the UML.
I mean, kudos to them. I'm honestly hoping to see what their strategy is to make that early game really happen for them.
Mhm.
And I think it could be really interesting.
Yeah, and I do think that at the end of the day, a Forgotten Kingdom is a decent team to try this kind of composition out against. They also went 0-2 in their first week, this time against Purdue Northwest. And so, because of that, these teams probably on relatively equal footing regarding their power level inside of the UML. There's still a lot of time for both teams to scale, obviously, but for the time being, why not test this kind of high tempo, high pace build and construction that Contingent is going for up against AFK, who right now is showing to be one of the weaker teams?
For sure. And either way, there's no telling what these two teams are actually gonna do once the game starts. We
Mhm.
might see some big unexpected plays, some great mistakes. I love some great mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anyone can throw, right? It happens even at the highest levels of play. I'm sure if you've been watching play-ins for Worlds, you've been seeing that even those players all together on comms, the best in the world, it's their job to play this, definitely have the ability to let go of massive gold leads, massive bits of priority across the map. And so the same thing can go for here, even if Contingent does in fact not stabilize super well in that early game. I think that they could take down AFK off of something like a bad Baron play and whatnot. It's just a matter of how these teams at macro, how they are able to respond to mistakes presented by the enemy. And that is what I think is going to decide this match number one.
Very true. I was hoping you'd mention that cursed purple worm, you know? It's definitely the place to be thrown if there are throws to be had.
It's my favorite place on the map. I love seeing Baron throws, mostly because I'm not inside of the game having to suffer through it. But, from the perspective of a caster, there's nothing more fun than watching the team fights around that objective.
For sure. Either way, it's looking to be an interesting match between these two teams. Um, do you want to place any bets on who wins?
Yeah, I gotta root for the hometown here. I gotta root for Contingent Esports. They've been treating me well for sure, Nakhana, and I gotta pay them back by saying that they definitely have a clear vision for the composition. Cassidon takes a long time to get online, and I think that in that intervening few moments, Pure Salt has performed super well on the Jin. Super excited to see RE10 on that LeBlanc, and Potato God can have a lot of priority in this early game. So I think they're gonna smash this one for sure. Take us over to a quick game number two, and from there hopefully emerge from the second week at a 1-1 position. That would be really, really great. Regardless, though, we're going to wait out this spectator delay to see what actually comes to pass here in just a few moments. Make sure you all don't go anywhere. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Contingent Esports Twitch channel. We are here with the Contingent Premier team up against a Forgotten Kingdom in the UML. This is week 2, and we did have a little bit of a pause right there at the start of the game, and therefore we are going to have to wait through this little hiccup, but we'll be into round number 1 very shortly. This is going to be an exciting one for sure. From the position of everybody coming out of the base, it looks like it's going to be a pretty basic 5-point. There is a chance that AFK may look for some sort of invade off the back of Heroic Bumne 02 on that Nautilus. And I gotta say, for everyone watching at home, make sure to keep your ears and eyes peeled, because we got Heroic Bunny 02 as well as Heroic Bumne 02 there on the side of AFK.
For sure. I have to wonder, why did they use M instead of N there? This just gotta make our jobs harder, huh?
I mean, honestly, if it was Heroic Bunny and Heroic Bunny, I think that is slightly harder to differentiate on cast versus Heroic Bumne and Heroic Bunny. So I'm glad that they didn't go for a second N there in the support's name. But regardless, it is an interesting decision by this team overall, and it may confuse our call just a little bit. But hey, got to use context clues, I guess, to really pick up on what's going on in this one.
And, one's a Nautilus, and the other's a Hecarim.
They both go
Honestly,
in.
I can't tell those two apart, if I'm being honest. They're big. What more is there to see?
Yeah, for sure. We'll see exactly how this game is going to start off. Regarding the jungler paths, it actually looks like we're getting a double topside start. We'll see how this leads to a fight over priority in the bot lane, and whether or not we'll see some action once everybody goes for that initial clear, and whether or not Potato God and Heroic Bunny are actually going to meet up.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little disappointed. Like, nobody went for an invade. Hello, what are you doing? Give us entertainment.
Yeah, there's a Nautilus in the game and no invades coming out. It's unfortunate, no action to start us off, but I'm sure things are going to heat up pretty darn soon. Like I said before, Contingent Esports kind of have the burden of going fast, getting kills early on their side, and so I'm sure that they're going to want to pull the trigger on plays wherever they see fit, and that is going to start up pretty darn soon as we see everybody going for what looks to be a full clear, starting on that top side. And therefore, being even like that, that could in fact lead to a clash over the river. And right now, we have Contingent in both mid and bot trying to get priority over the wave.
Yeah, it looks like neither side is going to do anything too exciting, but I'm glad we're seeing some action to start us off already. Speaking of burdens on blue side, they also seem to have the burden of those pesky LeBlanc auto attacks that, personally cause me pain every time I tried to use them.
Well, hey, at least they're the ones utilizing it versus a Forgotten Kingdom. And so therefore it is Ionian Tempest on that Kassadin, who's feeling the burn pretty early on in this lane. Although keeping things relatively even, losing health on trades, but regardless has a bit of priority to deal with, as we are seeing initial action off this invade. Here's the push for it. Heroic Bumne just going to hook down on to the blue buff, is now caught out because of the Trundle Pillar, has to flash away. First blood goes over to the side of Contingent Esports, and it's going to be PVS and Heroic Bunny having to burn Ghost to get out alive. Top side of the map, Cuddle Snuffles and Gorilla Jones going at it, both going relatively low off of this trade. The Gnar has the push advantage, but Cuddle Snuffles wants to turn this around, pops that passive, gonna flash forward. Gorilla Jones at just 100 health is able to get out at the expense of their own summoner spell, but now Cuddle Snuffles has a bit of priority, will be able to answer back, push this out, and then go for a buy.
Yeah, it looks like blue side is definitely, making their money moves to get their early kills, their early lead. Definitely wasn't expecting a fight over that blue buff, but here we are.
I mean, hey, you wanted an invade. They heard you. It was just, about 3 minutes before where you estimated it was actually going to happen.
Yeah, and it was also over a blue buff that Trundle already had, but they take those, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just for those fights. You do see how strong Contingent is early. That being said, RE10 in a little bit of trouble, just has to distortion dash their way back towards tower here. Doesn't burn any summoner spell, but Hecarim actually able to get a chunk out of this enemy mid laner.
Yeah, once these two mid laners hit level 6, I'm pretty sure the jungles might as well not bother coming around, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, so much mobility, so much slipperiness from both sides here. So I imagine, as you're saying, it's probably best to just try to focus down towards something like the bot side because there's a lot of push and pull. Renata doing a good job zoning away PVS and Heroic Bumne there, but Hecarim hiding in a bush means that if Pearsall tries to push back up, they could heavily be punished for doing so.
Yeah, the thing about the Jin lane is definitely like, he can place his traps to throw off those ganks, but at the same time, what's a trap to a Hecarim?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Hecarim definitely has a way in. It doesn't have Ghost, though, and is still level 3. So I imagine that it's probably going to just be another phase of farming for both Potato God and Heroic Bunny before we see more action. But regardless, these lanes and these trades already proving to be pretty exciting between these two teams.
Yeah, and it looks like Blue Side has not given up any of their lead and are in fact trying to get more. Looks like Mordekaiser's still trying to menace this Gnar player, but remains to be seen if he'll actually get anything out of it.
Yeah, both teleports are down. Gorilla Jones had a pretty solid interrupt of Cuddle Snuffle's recall there a few minutes back, and that has kind of led to the situation where now things have evened out again, and Gorilla Jones actually has priority regarding that level advantage. We see that attempted gank in the mid lane. Ionian Tempest has to flash out there, but now Heroic Bunny going to come through, help the Cassid and push this wave out, and hopefully get them a safe back.
For sure, and looks like my prophecy of once they hit level 6, the junglers might as well not bother is definitely coming through. Neither mid laner has taken much harm from either of these ganks, although I did see a flash come out from Catherine there, so I suppose that's definitely a summoner spell down for red side right now.
You know, I would say this is a surprising amount of action for that mid lane. RE10, I think, really feeling that pressure, trying to push in and hurt Ionian Tempest as much as possible. But they are level 6 now. They'll be able to fight back at least a little bit. And I think that we might actually be seeing a bit more of a focus there from the Hecarim, especially because Ionian Tempest doing very well to hold their own, still has the teleport up, so they can try to grab priority back. Meanwhile, topside, we got a lot of action. Cuddle Snuffles trying to go down onto Gorilla Jones, but Heroic Bunny with the big rotation up is going to allow for the Gnar to duck back into the alcove and stay alive there, so it will be a kill for a Forgotten Kingdom.
I was holding my breath there when the Hecarim took the Mordekaiser directly towards the Gnar, but looks like Gnar has in fact survived the ordeal.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta have your hop, skip, and jump up, and if you don't, it's not my fault. I'm just trying to get the kill and the gank for our team. So I definitely see where Heroic Bunny's coming from, and that pays off very nicely for AFK now. Cuddle Snuffles, still level 6, is kind of in an awkward position in that lane. I think that this is one of the lanes that is actually able to go a bit more even with AFK, and now it looks like Gnar actually will be able to possess quite a bit of priority, especially with Heroic Bunny going to crest towards that ultimate pretty soon and may actually look for return ganks. Speaking of movements from AFK topside, PVS actually going up into that lane.
That's definitely interesting. I've seen that Hecarim has been having some trouble killing the Gnar player for sure because Gnar, hop, skip, jump as you put it. But I wonder how he's going to fare against bot side having rotated up.
Yeah, and I do think that this is just mostly a positional call to try to grab away this Rift Herald, and now we see 4 members of AFK pushing back towards that Mordekaiser. That is allowing for RE10 and Please Dodge Phil Jungle to be able to get up towards this Rift Herald and actually grab it up for the side of Contingent Esports, and now the engage comes through because of RE10. Heroic Bunny goes down, and that's an uncontested kill and a solid pickup of that neutral objective for the Blue Squad.
Yeah, quite unfortunate for red side there. They kind of got pinned between a lot of people, but it looks like blue side made the right call. Quite a smart play by them, must say.
Ionian Tempest just weaving and bobbing around, all the spells coming their way, able to dodge out of Jin W, able to receive this wave under towers, so is going to remain pretty safe. It's about a 1,500 gold lead now for the side of Contingent Esports, and we'll see if they translate that into more as they start up this dragon.
It looks like red side and blue side are kind of all clumped around this dragon right now, so we're gonna see if we can hopefully get some more action. I don't know. I'd like that.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be an uncontested Drake for Contingent Esports to start this one off. Relatively early Dragon, so they will have the chance to stack up, and I do think that that is going to be core to them allowing themselves to scale through that mid game. Cuddle Snuffles trying to get as many plates as possible here. Gorilla Jones coming on back up, actually trying to give chase past the wave to trade up against the Mordekaiser and build up that rage stacks. He actually has a chance to go down here, but I think Cuddle Snuffles is back under the safety of the turret in time.
Oof. He almost got him there. That would have been definitely interesting, but it looks like he's gonna make it out, luckily for him and luckily for his team. Definitely things seem to have calmed down a lot right now, given that, the big objectives have vanished. One for blue side and the other also for blue side,
Yeah, for sure. And
Nice
I
and
do think that
balanced.
at this time, Contingent Esports probably are just going to be looking towards getting a gank in one of these lanes and hopefully dropping that Herald for a first tower or a bunch of plates already. Cuddle Snuffles did some solid damage to the top tier 1, and so that might be where I would focus things personally if I were the troll. But right now, Potato God actually moving down to the bot side of the map just to see what PVS and Heroic Bumne tried to do.
Yeah, they might be trying to uh, prevent red side's bot lane from having as much freedom as they just did when they moved up to top side for that Rift Herald. Obviously, they didn't get it, but throwing down a Rift Herald here and taking that turret would probably definitely limit bot lane's choices for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And right now, Pure Salt very comfortable with their income, with their build, up that pickaxe and crit cloak versus just the noon quiver for PVS. And so this may be the time to look for a fight if possible, but Heroic Bunny coming down, just hovering this lane as well to make sure that Potato God can't push deeper.
Yep, and it looks like things are quite calm right now, despite, everything that's happened, everything that's going on. I want to see some Rift Heralds, and it looks like it's still looking for bot side here.
Yeah, for sure. Potato God, I guess, just going to clear that bot side yet again. Go for a bit of a lane gang. Here's the engage. Heroic Bunny here as well. Gonna rush on in. Pure Salt being pushed back, but now the damage is coming out, being dropped down onto the Hecarim, who has to ult the opposite direction. And so this is a solid D push by Contingent Esports. They have the health advantage. RE10 getting engaged upon mid lane, though, by Ionian Tempest as a way to try to answer back here. But now Potato God, with priority over this lane, going to choose to drop this Rift Herald down bot side. Heroic Bunny hooks it in, but this charge is going to go through and put tons of gold into the pockets of Contingent Esports.
Gotta say, like some wonderful coordination in the bot lane there. That bait by Renata into the Trundle lane gank, taking the red side bot lane and jungle completely by surprise. You love to see it.
Yeah, Gorilla Jones, nice little invade and steal there up against Cuddle Snuffles, just able to get that blue buff. And we'll see if he continues to push his advantage in this lane, building back up towards those rage stacks yet again, has that level onto Cuddle Snuffles, getting a pretty decent trade here. Death Realm comes through, and this is where the Mordekaiser is going to try to turn things around, but Gorilla Jones goes Super Saiyan, throws the Mord against the wall, gets out of the Death Realm alive, and now has priority yet again.
Good on that Gnar player. It looks like Mordekaiser's definitely struggling here in this lane, but we'll have to see if a little more time and a little more power make him a force to be reckoned with, especially against the squishier members of Red Side.
Yeah, he has the components there for the Rift Maker. Once that item comes out, he spikes very well, can take some solid 1v1s, especially if Heroic Bunny wants to try to go for some kind of attack against him. And so I think the next Death Realm is really where Cuddle Snuffles is going to begin to pop off. Across the board right now, Contingent Esports holding on to a very small gold lead, is shrunk to about 500 in their favor. And the question is this going to be enough when you have Ionian Tempest and Heroic Bunny on two incredibly solid scaling champs, and PVS is holding their own as well?
Yeah, it looks like while blue side has the advantage and objectives and gold and everything, it's just it could vanish in a
Yeah, for
flash.
sure. And Cuddle Snuffles has to flash back towards their tower here off of this attempted dive. And now Heroic Bunny and Gorilla Jones proxying a little bit. I think that they're just going to be able to get out relatively safety. Cuddle Snuffles can't go in for that 2v1 even with that tower protection. And so while they are able to stop a dive, they can't get anything in return.
Yeah, and it looks like we're about to see some plays around this dragon that's coming up. if blue side can get this one as well, they can start definitely posing a threat to red side regarding their potential for soul, and we'll have to see what soul it is as well.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good call by Contingent. They're building off of the fact that Heroic Bunny went for a pretty committed dive top lane and failed. And so this is actually going to be a free Drake over for Blue's squad. And it looks like we're, in fact, going to be getting a... What soul are we? There we go, an Ocean Soul. We didn't get the rift change quite as quick as I thought we would.
And it looks like red side is trying to turn the tables at least slightly in their favor with this next Rift Herald, which it looks like is also going to be uncontested for them.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to walk up to AFK here in that topside river. Cuddle Snuffles still kind of waiting on that 1050 gold necessary to build up towards that Rift Maker. And Inkind can't really step to the mob of people on Red Squad side moving in that river. That being said, bot side, we got some action as Heroic Bumne is going to be in a lot of trouble here. All locked up, can't dredge line anywhere. They're going to be taken down with the help of Curtain Call by Pure Salt. Topside, we got some action as well. Here's the gank finally going to pay off for the Hecarim. They're able to kill Cuddle Snuffles on that Mordekaiser Potato God. Wants more alongside RE10 behind this tower, though. Here comes the pillar and the chase down. PVS able to send their rocket shots, though, into the face of the troll and D-push for the time being. But now it's turrets gone on both sides of the map for these teams, trading back with a little bit of extra gold over to AFK.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how I feel about Cuddle Snuffles engaging on the Gnar with that gap in items going on still, and it looks like he paid dearly for it with that gank by the Hecarim, and now they're further paying dearly for it with that Rift Herald taking most of topside here, it seems.
Yeah, getting 3 charges off of a Shelly is going to be absolutely crippling to the side of Contingent Esports. They lose the tier 1 and tier 2 top, and now Gorilla Jones has so much priority to go where they please, and also has an incredibly solid farm advantage over Cuddle Snuffles.
Not to mention the bounty of 150 gold from their 2 assists as well. And that is quite a bit of farm for the Gnar. He's just gonna buy a Wit's End straight up.
Yeah, about an item up now. It doesn't have the completed boots that Cuddle Snuffles does, but I'd pick up that Triforce and Wit's End over just the Rift Maker and Tabbies any day. And so now, definitely that's where the asymmetry is coming in. That's where a Forgotten Kingdom has concentrated a lot of their gold, and we'll see how Gorilla Jones is going to try to translate that across the rest of the map.
Yeah, and definitely Contingent has some, they're not completely in a terrible position going into the late game. Some of their big carries can be assassinated by that LeBlanc quite easily, I feel like. But unfortunately, that Gnar and Hecarim are not going to be as easy to pick off. Not to mention the Nautilus, who's also going to be a force to be reckoned with once red side gets their power spikes.
Yeah, for sure. And you also got to look at that mid lane. Ionian Tempest, unafraid, going for the full damage with that Luden's Tempest as their first item. They're in really good shape, given their farm, to take this game over unless Contingent Esports can make some big moves. They have been stacking up those dragons. That's where I think a lot of their focus is going to be. But now the question is, if Gnar comes, can you win these 5v5s?
Yeah, and it looks like, you know, despite like bot Rift Herald early on, getting them a good bit of a gold lead and a lot of priority bot side, that Rift Herald top lane did so much more, given that it was dropped after the barricades were down, and it looks like they're gonna have to deal with the split push for the rest of the game, just, you know, consistently threatening them up in top side.
And that's unfortunate because the Forgotten Kingdom has been doing a really good job overloading the lanes that they want to target next. That being said, Contingent Esports answering back, getting themselves that tower in the mid lane, just kind of freeing up a bit of priority over River. And I think that that is going to be one of the recipes for success. They need to be able to continue to push these waves back out, answer back against the Forgotten Kingdom, and hopefully from there you can move your players into the river and grab yourself those upcoming Drakes.
For sure, but I imagine that red side isn't going to let go of these next few Drakes as easily as they did the first two. So I'm interested to see what they're about to do, given that they're all moving down the mid lane in single file.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the concern right now. And as you were saying, Nakhana, look at that push topside. Because you've now lost that tier 3 inhibitor turret, you don't actually have a means by which to de-push everything that's coming towards you from AFK's side. And so that's going to be something that you constantly have to babysit. And if Gorilla Jones ever does want to split now that you have those unleashed teleports, I think that you have to peel away from some of these core objectives that are so important to Contingent Esports winning this game.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like Red side isn't going to look at that for this particular fight, but rather fight as 5 versus the 5 of blue side.
And I mean, this is the correct call, I think. Like I said, Gorilla Jones is so much your gold, and we see their confidence as they flash on in, get the knockback against Cuddle Snuffles, who immediately Death Realms here, tries to answer back against the Big Gnar for the time being, and doing a pretty darn good job of it. They go down to just a sliver of health. RE10 able to blow up Heroic Bunny. PVS going to dive on in, using their ultimate, but that's the wrong call. They can't get the pick down onto Potato God, and so therefore everybody on the side of Contingent remains alive here, and they are able to file towards that third dragon of the game.
Yeah, goodness me. Like, that Mordekaiser, it's like, you think you've got him, but like, now that he has his first item and he's spiked a little bit, he's definitely, once he pulls out that big shield, you never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and now we see the re-engage. We see the curtain call come down. It was saved from that last fight. Pearson going on a killing spree here, able to snipe down Heroic Bumnay, and Ionian Tempest, the last one alive in that mid lane, just has to catch the waves as they push on in. But this is a good, solid chunk of gold over to Contingent Esports. They have 2K in the advantage pool, and now I think that they could start looking for more 5v5s. They are confident in their ability to shut down Gorilla Jones early, and that means maybe eyes drawn towards the Baron.
For sure, and it's definitely the case that, blue side has gotten their carries fed. They've gotten a lot of gold on them, and even though they lack that top side entirely, it looks like they're just winning their fights. And I think red side is going to have to play very carefully now and think of every move so that they don't lose a big fight like that again, because another lost fight could mean Dragon Soul over to blue side.
Yeah, for sure. And I gotta say, for the side of AFK, I would have made the exact same calls that they did. I love the fact that Gorilla Jones went in so deep on that fight around the dragon, because I was confident that they would be able to do a lot more. But unfortunately, Cuddle Snuffles, with the really heads up Death Realm, really just able to isolate down the Gnar. And that's really benefited this situation immensely for Contingent Esports, because now one of the big players from AFK is still forced back until they're able to build something like a QSS.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely Mordekaiser is one of those fights to like turn the tide. Did I say fight? He's definitely one of those champions to turn the tide of any fight, what with his stat stealing and stat checking.
Yeah, for sure. Cuddle Snuffles happily able to trade with Gorilla Jones, and now, even though there still is a CS difference that has shrunk considerably, and Mordekaiser is scaling magnificently off of that Rift Maker, their buys in the next few minutes, I think, are really going to put them as a solid threat that will be able to answer back against AFK. The question is, there is still that looming threat of the topside turrets all gone for Contingent, and what exactly can AFK do to continue to try to put salt in that wound? Tower goes down bot side. Cuddle Snuffles goes for the death row. Gorilla Jones, though, gets his stacks in time. He's a mad boy. He opts right back in on it to the King of Iron, and with one more slam is able to get the solo bolo.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate miss on the drag for Mordekaiser. I think if he got that, he might have killed the Gnar there, but it was not to be, sadly.
Yeah, and I mean, getting a bit of a caster's curse here. I was confident in Cuddle Snuffle's ability to answer back against Gorilla Jones, but he's still behind on those items, has been out of base for so long, only now grabbing themselves the Rylai's. So that was a tough fight to take. Gorilla Jones tenaciously just whacking away at that turret, eventually gets it, and so they're still comfortably in a solid position. They're able to do a whole lot for AFK. It's just a matter of where you apply that pressure as Gnar. Potato God goes on into Heroic Bumnay, who has to just ultimate themselves out, towards that tower. Got myself caught because of the name between them and Nihilus. I said Heroic Bumnay instead of Heroic Bunny. Fantastic. Love what AFK is doing with their naming conventions.
Love it so much. And I've got to say, red side can't really take too much advantage of their, open top on the blue side. If LeBlanc and Trundle just live there and are constantly threatening anyone who dares come near. So definitely props to Blue Side for, applying some pressure there, even with their turret disadvantage. It looks like they're still very much in control of what's happening here.
Yeah, for sure. They still have that gold lead. They have 3 dragons so far, and the next one's spawning up in just a few moments. If you're able to rush down this soul, grab it at about the 25-minute mark, I think that Contingent Esports have a very clear path to victory. It's just a matter now of making sure Kassadin can't get a huge push top lane. Make sure that you aren't parlaying away something like that Baron Nashor that Forgotten Kingdom is currently clustered around. And now we see, because of that, Contingent actually being pulled up towards that topside river while the dragon still gets closer to spawning.
Yeah, and I definitely like smart play for red side to draw the focus away from that dragon and towards the Baron instead.
Yeah, that's a big catch out right there. Heroic Bunny not going to go down, but has to burn their ultimate again to rush out from the threat that RE10 brings to the table. LeBlanc, so scary right now, able to tear through some of these chunkier members even of AFK. Gorilla Jones goes Mega Gnar form, tries to get something done against Contingent Esports as they move towards that dragon. But I think because RE10 has such a solid attack against the Hecarim topside, you just have to give this soul up. And Contingent Esports, the 4th uncontested Drake of the game, Forgotten Kingdom wants to try to trade this back by grabbing up the Baron Nashor, but Blue Squad is now rotating. Cuddle Snuffles, the first one onto the crime scene. Heroic Bumne trying to zone out here, but now all of Red Team have to move off of the big purple worm, and now it might actually change hands. Contingent Esports had it leashed for them. It's at less than half health, and here comes the bonketing down from Cuddle Snuffles and Potato God upon this objective. Teleport being channeled topside. Ionian Tempest is in the area trying to push forward here. RE10 with the wraparound, able to distortion back towards the front line of that fight. Here comes the hostile takeover. Heroic Bunny and Ionian Tempest both taken low. They have to try to back out. The Baron is going to be taken away by Contingent Esports. Heroic Bunny waiting on into the melee is going to fall here. Gorilla Jones also incredibly low, and he's going to die to Pure Salt off of the curtain call.
That was an incredible fight. Or an incredible sequence of events. If I was that Hecarim right now, I would be very sad about the way things have turned out.
Yeah, AFK unfortunately taken so low off of those initial few skirmishes, and Contingent Esports so solid in that 5v5. They pull the trigger at the correct time. They get themselves the Baron, the Soul, and now they are looking to close this game out with this march down mid lane.
Yeah, and well, with the Renata ult, red side was just completely zoned off from that Baron from start to end of that fight, so Trundle just slowly whittled it down and eventually took it with no contest.
Yeah, and now with that inhibitor mid gone, I think that all of these concerns about topside have evaporated. Contingent Esports very much in the driver's seat, and this is before their reset. They're gonna back here, get themselves a ton of items, and now they could look to push wherever they so desire. And with an early soul on the table, looming a doom hangs in the air for a Forgotten Kingdom, because Elder Dragon is the next thing in that bot side pit, and you need to be able to contest that one.
Yeah, and it's looking pretty bad for red side right now because they need more of a gold lead right now, or at least less of a gold gap, in order to be able to answer to blue side's extremely fed people who are starting to hit like trucks.
Yeah, Ionian Tempest level 14, not quite cast a win yet, but that's where I think a lot of the focus is going to be for Contingent. Can you pick this champion off before you move on to the rest of the members of AFK? If you can, I don't think that there's a way that this team is going to be able to mount a defense as we see the march down towards the bot side of the map. They look to siege this tier 2.
Yeah, the Kai'Sa and the Kassadin definitely need more time to scale, and it doesn't look like they're going to get that with blue side just terrorizing their way down all the lanes.
Yeah, Gorilla Jones on a solid split push here. Still a very big champion in their own right, but they have to try to fight through the empowered Baron minions now. And with the fast rotation that the buff gives, Cuddle Snuffles able to go on in, is going to Death Realm up the Mordekaiser. But this is mostly just a prison to keep this champion locked on up so that RE10 can try to rush on in for the kill. Here's the distortion forward. Not able to get the chains down onto the baby Yordle. And so he'll be able to kite this out, but still Contingent Esports across the map map, able to wreak havoc, grab themselves turrets, and get themselves the priority necessary to now go for the Elder Dragon.
Yeah, and Narg not going to get anything out of that split push there, except perhaps a reducing of pressure on the other lanes. But even that isn't enough just yet. They need something big, an objective, a one fight, something, and it doesn't look like that's looking less and less possible by the minute.
I mean, it is going to be a pretty automatic forced fight once the Baron comes back up, once the Elder Dragon is on the table. And so you can get everybody together for a big jamboree. It's just a question of what can you really do when you're in a 6K or 5K gold deficit. Unfortunately, that gold is also just not concentrated on your hyper carries right now. Ionian Tempest unable to get up to level 16 quite yet. And PVS is honestly so far behind Pure Salt at this point that they really are just kind of a caster minion.
The unfortunate fate of ADCs who do not get their items in time. It's very true.
I mean, it's nice that they have actually better CS right now than Pure Salt, but Pure Salt 6-0-3 is absolutely monstrous and has positioned so well in all of these team fights, and we may be seeing more action here as Hecarim gets rooted on up. Cuddlestuffle is going to take this opportunity to push forward, try to get the grab down onto the enemy horse, but is unable to do so, so this push will be repelled. But once again, Contingent Esports just happy to just comfortably walk into a base, cause havoc, and walk right back out. If you keep trying that, eventually you're going to pick someone off and look to end the game. Another route goes down, this time onto Gorilla Jones, who's about at half health. He wants to be able to build his stacks if they go for an engage here, but RE10 hiding in those bushes, able to push forward. There's the chains coming down onto the Gnar, but LeBlanc now a bit overextended, gets shut down by PVS. Potato God is trying to rush back from the rest of this fight, but PVS still rushing forward. Gorilla Jones is Mega Gnar form at about half health, but now without the LeBlanc there, you can really try to go in on this one, and we see PVS actually get the kill onto the Renata Glask as well. Everybody on Contingent Esports side is scattered. The death round comes through for Cuddlestuffles, but as soon as he emerges, it's the double-double for PVS, and now the Kai'Sa is running rampant here around this tier 1 mid. The shutdown goes over to the Kassadin. Potato God able to kill the Gnar, but it's an ace for a Forgotten Kingdom.
Wow, that is not what I was expecting. It looks like one Nautilus hook away from just, turning the tables all of a sudden. Really unfortunate for that LeBlanc there. But is this going to be enough for red side?
I mean, grabbing the Elder Dragon is an immense boon for your team. It's so hard to take team fights now for Contingent Esports, and because the Baron is the next thing on the docket, I think AFK is actually able to just pivot immediately from this Elder on over. That being said, RE10 wants to turn this around. Distortion's immediately into the pick, is able to kill Heroic Bunny, but the question is, can they stay alive up against the Nautilus and the Kassadin? The answer is no. Ionian Tempest is Casa win now, level 16, but at the same time, the pick off of the jungler means AFK needs to back off away from the Elder, and now we see the push in from Contingent Esports.
The LeBlanc definitely making amends for that last team fight. Looks like blue side can, it's not all lost for them yet. Well, it was never all lost for them, but the Elder, at least, is not lost on them at all, it seems.
Yeah, they're starting up the Elder Dragon now, and they actually have their Trundle up with Smite, so that's something to watch out for. But I think that the remaining members of a Forgotten Kingdom are just so damn strong. They're going to try to push in here, but Elder Dragon goes over to the Trundle in time. Ionian Tempest needs to blink away. PVS gets shut down off of the execute by Pure Salt, and so the hopes of a Forgotten Kingdom dry up as fast as they came on in.
Yeah, it's really hard for a Kai'Sa to scale when there's a Jhin just taking half of everyone's health with a single auto attack, not even his fourth shot.
And I mean, that's all you need now, because Elder Dragon on the table, and the attempted split by Gorilla Jones bot side is getting thwarted because Contingent Esports are just going to take the Baron off of this, walk in after a clean fight, and end the game. We'll see how a Forgotten Kingdom can answer back against this, but things are now looking very dire for Red Squad.
Very true, and it doesn't look like they're going to offer a contest to this Baron at all. Definitely, it's looking like red side is going to have to go back to the drawing board on this one.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how they try to adapt. I will say that there is a chance we get another turnaround team fight similar to what a Forgotten Kingdom just got there in the mid lane. But now they have Elder Dragon to work through, and that's such a difficult thing with the explosive damage that RE10 and Pearsall bring to the table.
Yeah, one good Nautilus hook or Gnar engage could spell doom for blue side, but it's looking less likely by the minute.
Yeah, Heroic Bumney just unable to really make a play in this game. They've been getting outscaled so hard, do not have the tankiness to really go for the flat 5v5, and Contingent Esports has been doing the front to back so beautifully here. They're just going to push down mid. They don't even want these tertiary objectives. They just want to take these Nexus turrets. First one's gonna go down. Pearsall gets the root. Cassidy needs to go golden, and the Gale Force forward means that Gorilla Jones goes low as well. But now Pearsall maybe a little too deep into enemy territory, gets battered and bruised. PVS able to pick that one up, but here's the turnaround. She dies as well. Potato God and please dodge, Phil, juggle, take down that last tower, and the Nexus goes along with it.
Yeah, Red Side just said, this Jin dies today and got him out before taking that loss.
I mean, sometimes you just got to make a statement. It's more valuable than coming away with the dub, especially given how hard fought that was. Contingent Esports coming out on top with a really explosive game at #1 between them and a Forgotten Kingdom. Big plays across the board. RE10 and Pearsall pumping down the damage. Potato God at every objective. This team working together like a fine oiled machine, and they go 1-0 so far in the series.
Yep, proud of Blue Side for that one. It was very well played. Props to them. Interested to see what both sides are going to pull out for the next one.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking about how Contingent Esports needed to make those big plays early, and they succeeded in doing so. So why fix what isn't broken? Honestly, I think that they could kind of go back for a similar, very dominant early game and just try to win through that. At the same time, I think AFK, while they did start scaling there at the end, need something that goes at least a little bit faster than the Kassadin to actually have a chance, given the might of Contingent in this one. So we'll see exactly what happens, what adaptations are going to be made by both sides as we move on into game #2. Don't go anywhere. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Contingent Esports Twitch channel. We are here with match number 2 of the night between A Forgotten Kingdom and the Contingent Esports premier team here in the UML. Contingent having an explosive game number 1 and doing an incredible job snowballing their way towards a victory. No lost neutral objectives. Every dragon going their way, Elder as well, and 2 Barons to boot. They absolutely stomped down onto AFK, and we're going to see whether or not AFK's scaling composition from game number 1 can work here as the bans come through. Darius, Yasuo, and Seraphine knocked out by a Forgotten Kingdom, and Contingent Esports going to be knocking away the Renata Glask alongside Varus and LeBlanc.
Yeah, it looks like we're seeing some of the very important playmaking picks from last game being thrown out, seemingly by their own side.
Yeah, it's a little bit interesting. They kind of reversed bans. I have a feeling that maybe yeah, I feel that maybe AFK is actually on red side and Contingent is on blue, which is going to be a pain to remember as we move through this draft phase. But yeah, let's actually get that settled. It is going to be Contingent Esports going with that Jin yet again, which I guess makes a little bit more sense given what we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, and looks like is that an Ash support? Is that an Ash support? Are they gonna do
Please
it?
don't be an Ash support. Oh my gosh. Arlen, if you could hear me, please do not go Ash support. Thank you. Thank you. That is so much better. Meanwhile, on the side of a Forgotten Kingdom, not Contingent. Oh, that's going to throw me off so badly here in the draft lull. We got the Karthus jungle most likely coming out with a Bard support, although Karthus does have quite a bit of flex potential into multiple roles.
Okay, I'm so excited for this Bard support. You don't see it too often, and I'm really excited about this. I love that the ult is so like you can completely fuck over one side. It just like it varies which side that is.
Yeah, no profanity on broadcast, or at least try to keep it to a minimum here. We
Oops,
are a family
my
friendly
bad.
channel here on Contingent. But no, I totally get what you're saying. That ultimate is so valuable, very, very volatile, though, at the same time. And I do want to see Heroic Bumney pop off on this pick. They struggled a little bit, I feel, on that Nautilus last game. They just didn't have a whole lot to do in terms of engage, just because you had the Hecarim frontlining so darn well. And it was also just extremely hard for the Nautilus to go in without dying. So this, I think, is definitely a nice pivot by the side of a Forgotten Kingdom. The Karthus as well, scale oriented for sure, but can definitely impact lanes with that ultimate early. Yone coming out, probably going to that top side for Gorilla Jones.
Boo, we don't like Yone. Get him out of here.
Yeah, and AFK. Oh, sorry, Contingent Esports on a blue side. Jeez, this is awful. Is going to be picking up the Udyr. This could go top. This could go jungle. Maokai also has a lot of presence in multiple roles, so you have a very flexible comp here. And because of the fact that the Udyr and Maokai are selected, uh, not Contingent, a Forgotten Kingdom has to. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cover up the name tags and move my tabs over here. Okay, so with that in mind, we are seeing them pinch away the mid lane picks for the side of Contingent Esports. Yes, Contingent. And meanwhile, Aatrox, Kled, the same bands coming through for Contingent versus a Forgotten Kingdom.
Yeah, definitely we're seeing contingent bans, like, I think exactly what they banned last game, while Forgotten Kingdom has definitely opted to take out some picks that are, I think, more relevant to the enemy mid laners. So it looks like Contingent's very confident with their picks this time. So we're gonna have to see if Forgotten Kingdom can really one up them this time and show them that they're not to be trifled with.
Yeah, for sure. And I do like the fact that they are willing to go for this pivoting game at number 2. With your backs to the wall, these are some great champions to really slug it out on. Love that Sejuani pick coming through for AFK. And meanwhile, we're getting a little bit of shift from Contingent. Viego probably going into the jungle there. So we're going to be seeing Cuddle Snuffles on the Udyr top once more. And now we are looking for the mid lane selection for their side. Hovering that Cass, hovering that Vex. Those are 2 really solid champions up against the Yone.
Yeah, we definitely saw Forgotten Kingdom ban out Viego in the last match, so it's interesting to see if it was warranted, if like the Viego really messes them up like they might think it does.
Yeah, Potato God has a history on this champion, does exceedingly well on it. So I'm happy to see it busted out here. I become more and more skeptical of Udyr top as time has gone on. I think that now, especially with Q being better, Udyr is very much just a more solid pick in the jungle. But Arlen really does love continuing to put it into the hands of Kettle Stuffles, and they've been playing it a lot in solo queue as well. So we'll see exactly what plays out here. Meanwhile, last pick now, a Forgotten Kingdom on that Olaf.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting top lane. We're probably going to see them just battering each other over the course of that lane. They look
Yeah,
very
for sure.
similar, wouldn't you say?
I would
Now that
say
I'm
so.
looking at these splashes.
Yeah, I guess the question is where exactly is the Sejuani Olaf going? I imagine that it is probably going to be Olaf top with Sejuani jungle, and the Yone actually pivots there into the mid lane for Ionian Tempest, which is definitely still a scaler, but not quite to the same degree as Kassadin. And that's one of the things I called out regarding AFK's comp in game number 1. So really liking those adjustments all around.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see. I know that Vex is like definitely a very strong pick throughout the game. That ult makes her a force to be reckoned with.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, same thing with Karthus. He's not as much of I guess, a brute force approach that Vex takes, but he is very powerful with that team wide ult regardless. Although Contingent isn't looking too squishy, which never is good for a Karthus ult.
Yeah, I think that you have relatively solid resistances on the Maokai, the Udyr, and the Viego for Karthus to struggle to kind of go up against. There's some nice bodies as well for Viego to steal, and Vex is going to really have a fun time chaining through this team as long as they're able to get some of this front line out of the way on AFK's side. So I think once again, there's a clear target that Contingent Esports is aiming towards, and so far that aim has been true. The question is, can AFK enact their composition just a little bit better this time around? A lot of scary champions with a lot of very much impactful abilities on their side. Karthus are Bard are two huge things to note. And Olaf, I think, is going to have a great time just pushing up against champions like the Vex here, which may limit the availability of RE10 to actually shut down Ionian Tempest on the Yone.
Yeah, the Olaf and Sejuani are definitely going to be big members of AFK, I think. But I am worried for their more squishier picks, the Karthus and the Yone. I feel like they might have a hard time going against this team that's looking more tanky than theirs overall.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just depends who you could get down onto the back line. Bard, I think, is really going to help allow for a good maneuvering of members of a Forgotten Kingdom to where they need to be. If Olaf is able to dive on to the Jin, I think it's basically lights out for Contingent Esports' ability to team fight in this one. But at the same time, Pure Salt has proven themselves to be the masters of movement, the masters of positioning in these fights. So that's something also that I'm very happy to see come back out. Contingent Esports, I think, have a solid shot going 2-0 in the series, but a Forgotten Kingdom is not going to allow for them to go easily into the night.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see what the dynamic of the game is going to be this time around. Last time we definitely saw that scaling comp versus early game comp and we saw who won out. What do you think about the dynamic of this game? Because I'm not entirely too sure myself.
I think that there's great pick potential on the side of a Forgotten Kingdom. Bard ult, obviously, with its incredible range and the tendency for that champion to just roam anyway, kind of will allow for a Forgotten Kingdom to look for vulnerable members across the map. And when you combine that with Karthus, I think that your setups are fantastic to weaken the front line, weaken the core members of Contingent Esports before team fights. And from there, AFK could really set up around those dragons, set up around those barons that they lost in game number 1 and try to steamroll the game through that perspective. Meanwhile, Contingent, if they're able to dodge those issues, if they're able to play each lane really well and just shut down the enemy champions, get them off of gold, get them off of farm, I think that we could have a great front to back yet again, and we can watch Pure Salt go crazy for a second game in a row. But regardless of what's going to happen, it's going to be a banger match for sure, Nakhana. So with that in mind, we're going to throw it to a quick break, but when we return, it's going to be game number 2 between Contingent Esports and A Forgotten Kingdom. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Contingent Esports Twitch channel. We are here with match number 2 between Contingent Esports' premier team and a Forgotten Kingdom in the UML. This is going to be an exciting one for sure. Contingent remains on blue side for this one, have a small change up in their rosters. And we're going to see whether or not this new team comp is going to be able to bring them a 2-0 victory over AFK.
Yeah, definitely some very interesting picks. I'm really looking forward to this match because, there's a Bard, there's a Karthus, there's a Yone derogatory, there's an Olaf. All sorts of interesting champs on red side. And on blue side, we're seeing that Maokai, which I love. Obviously we're not gonna see much invading again, which, very, very disappointing, but this time it's at least to be expected.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see whether or not we're going to be getting opposite side starts from the junglers, which is what it looks like this time around. So maybe we'll have a little bit more chill of a beginning to this game. There was so much action peppered throughout the first few minutes of round number 1. But this time, I don't think these junglers are going to meet up super early. No crazy invades across to that blue buff this time for sure, as it is what is going to be focused down by Heroic Bunny this time around.
So what you're saying is we won't get as much action?
I mean,
I'm
that's what I'm
horrified.
reading, or that's what I'm at least feeling here, at least for a little bit. The junglers, at the very least, are probably just going to be looking for opportunistic ganks on the lanes that they're pathing it towards, more so than it actually just being a clash in the river that these lanes have to rotate towards. And with that in mind, priority still matters, but in a different way than what we saw in the first match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see some Bard roams as well.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
feel like a good Bard roam mid would really make this game interesting for me, no matter how it ends.
No, for sure. That would be a great thing to see here. Bard, I think, is a really solid selection here for Heroic. Bumney, like I said, a pivot away from those engage-oriented champions, especially now with PVS on the Karthus, I think is a really sharp call, and it really impacts the way that a Forgotten Kingdom is able to look at this early game already. Push priority for Pure Salt and Please Dodge Field Jungle, though.
Yeah, definitely worrying that, or at least my worry is that Karthus might be a bit too passive of a laner along with that Bard to be able to inflict much damage on the Jhin early. Or, a free farm lane for Jhin, perhaps. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, for sure. But at the same time, Karthus is not someone who's super good at going in early. And so I think that if you keep the lane passive, that's really all you need to do in order to ensure that PVS can scale up. And AFK, I think, really has a shot in that late game. Meanwhile, where we were talking about that topside, Gorilla Jones had to flash away from Potato God going on that gank path. And that means now they are down that summoner spell and maybe subject to future ganks. We'll see exactly what happens here. Gorilla Jones able to get a bit more priority, though, back up against Cuddle Snuffles.
Yeah, and we definitely have seen that these two top laners definitely like to scuffle. Also, definitely that Olaf is a power to be reckoned with early games, so it remains to be seen whether or not we see as much scuffling as last time.
Brutal trade there for Ionian Tempest in the mid lane. RE10 playing this counter matchup super well, able to get a ton of poke down onto the Yone early and keep them out of the fight. Heroic Bunny going to hover in bush here, but pings coming out. RE10 relatively safe in how they're playing in that lane. Happy to continue to get pushed on into. Meanwhile, bot side, we got some action. PVS going to go low. Ignite being burned by Please Dodge Field Jungle, but the Karthus gets out alive, and now RE10 mid lane gonna get engaged. John has to flash back.
Yeah, definitely. The way the Vex was throwing skill shots mid, you might have thought that she could almost see the Sejuani in the bush that had no vision, but it looks like she could not, in fact, see that Sejuani. Is paid for it with her flash.
Yeah, so Sejuani flashing out here now may mean that Potato God has the chance to go on in. Bot side, we got some action as well. Please Dodge Field Jungle going to go down onto PVS, who's trying to stay behind Heroic Bumney, but now Pure Salt's the one in trouble. Bard can do damage to Nakhana, and the Ignite is dropped down onto the Jhin, who has to cower under the tower.
True, I did forget about Bard being in that lane as a source of damage. You understand, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah, for sure. Cuddle Snuffles maybe in a bit of trouble here. Gorilla Jones continuing to run down on to the man Bear Pig. He's able to get back under tower for the time being, though. And we do have Potato God staying up topside to make sure that no shenanigans are pulled. That being said, Heroic Bunny in the area. And Cuddle Snuffles wants to try to push back up here. Olaf relatively low. And it looks like we got ourselves a 2v2 topside of the map. No level 6 is available. Gorilla Joe's going to get burst down quite quickly here. And now Cuddle Snuffles trying to stay alive up against Heroic Bunny, and due to the body steal, Potato God is able to help grab that one. It's 2-0 topside for Contingent.
I'm sensing that Cuddle Snuffles likes to play top laners who have a tendency to pull a big giant shield out of nowhere.
I mean, who doesn't like to pull big giant shields out of nowhere? I think that it's one of the best things to try to go for. PVS in a bit of trouble. Flash forward from Pure Salt to get the root down on to the Karthus. And because of the Bush Baby, they are quite slow trying to make it through this jungle. Going very low. RE10 rotating around the corner. Here comes Ionian Tempest, who's actually going to get chased down because of Please Dodge Phil Jungle's E. Although they are able to stay under that tower, and Pure Salt all the while pushing away the Yone, able to get themselves a kill onto the enemy Karthus.
Yeah, it's a good thing that Yone managed to dodge that Jhin root there, or I'm afraid he would have gone the way of Karthus.
Yeah, so far 3-0 in favor of Contingent Esports. They have themselves about a 1.5k gold lead over their partners in AFK, and that's a solid place to be here because these comps I think are a little bit more balanced in terms of scaling power, and so therefore Contingent very happy with the current state of the game. They could try to use this gold and item advantage to maybe go for that first Drake that has spawned up.
Yeah, we saw last game that Contingent definitely likes to prioritize their drakes. We'll see if Red Side is more diligent about them this time and is more careful about letting them slip away so easily.
But at the same time, what can you do? You are down a substantial chunk of gold right now. And once again, a lot of that is on Pure Salt, who's just so strong. And meanwhile, if Gorilla Jones tries to rotate over, Cuddle Snuffles, the other person who's the recipient of a kill, is really going to be able to wreak havoc top lane and make sure that they get some plates over to Contingent, furthering that gold lead. So it's a tough situation all around. Red Squad has a way back into this for sure, but for the time of being, Contingent are able to set the pace of this game.
Yeah, and it looks like bot lane definitely has Prior right now with Jhin backing to get his item as well. And he's, as it appears, got a Noon Quiver already, so it's definitely going to be difficult for Red Side to do anything about those dragons. Especially with Vex continuously bullying that Yone in the mid lane.
Yeah, and speaking of bullying, Ione and Tempest have to burn their ult to get out of dodge alive. And so that's a big tool down. That's something else that cannot be employed if we do see a rotation of Blue Squad towards that dragon. So overall, things continuing to go swimmingly for Contingent Esports.
Yeah, and we're seeing pings coming out from blue side, seemingly about to try and look at that Drake right now for their side.
Yeah, and I think that those pings are the correct call here. They probably need to clear out that vision, but even if they take it in front of AFK, I still think that it is very risky for Red Squad to try to go in and take back this neutral objective. Right now, they are just a little bit too weak, I think, to handle what Contingent brings to the table. Cuddle Snuffles able to push this wave in most of the way, going to be able to just back up against Gorilla Jones, get themselves a solid chunk of gold and a solid item build going forward into this game.
Yeah, definitely not the greatest position for the Olaf to be in with his early game strength. He sadly fails to be ahead in this lane, but it still remains to be seen. It's not yet time for him to lose his power in this lane, so he might still be able to pull something out against the Udyr.
Yeah, for sure. The Olaf definitely still one of the things I'm focusing on. Gorilla Jones performed incredibly well on the Gnar in game number 1. He's up on CS here as well, and is kind of the reason why AFK are getting the confidence to go for this Rift Herald. This time it's not going to be contested, and it will get snapped up there by Heroic Bunny. And so this could be their ticket back into this one. Getting some plates down, getting a pick in a lane will really define the next few moments of this game.
Yeah, although we definitely saw that Rift Herald early versus Rift Herald later in the game made a huge difference to the dynamic between these two teams. So I personally am not convinced that any early Rift Herald would be enough to bring the lead comfortably enough into one side or the other.
But I mean, to be fair, that was the thing that was putting a Forgotten Kingdom ahead in game. At number one, please dodge Phil Jungle. Barely able to get out alive. Here comes the magical journey. They still want to try to bear down onto the Maokai, but he's able to escape into the protective arms of their territory. And somehow, even though multiple members of Contingent Esports go low off of that push, a Forgotten Kingdom still not able to pick up a kill.
Yeah, that looked like it was really bad for Blue side, and while they did lose some summoner spells, they definitely did not give away any of their gold.
Yeah, topside, we see Heroic Buddy still in that tri-bush, and now Heroic Bumnay is up here to join them. So Cuddle Snuffles may be looking down the barrel of a dive. Here comes the Rift Herald being dropped on in, and now Udyr has to try to find a way out. Look at all the CC that these champions provide, though Cuddle Snuffles actually feeling relatively confident, wants to walk back up towards this dying tier 1 to knock away Shelly and just stay safe up against these three members. Ionian Tempest was also cheating towards this area, but now has to go reoccupy the mid lane to get back some of that gold in that wave. Please dodge Phil Jungle coming on up. The dive has been going on long enough that now there's a little bit of defense there for the Udyr.
Yeah, the Tabbies have definitely been serving our Udyr player quite well, as he's been able to get away from the Olaf, get away from this dive that was just made against him. Pretty good investment, pretty smart investment as well. Although, it looks like he might be in a spot of trouble now.
Yeah, he is being pushed down the river. Bard is coming down to Pincer as well, but Cuddle Snuffles, very tanky as we were talking about, has to flash over the wall. We'll be able to curve around back towards the tier 1 for the time being. Heroic Bunny continues to push on in with that magical journey, but it's not deep enough, and now PVS all alone bot side. This is where Contingent Esports is going to start smelling blood in the water. Please dodge Phil Jungle, the one picking that up. The Karthus is dead under tower.
It gotta feel bad for Cuddle Snuffles here. He can't catch a break. They've been just diving him nonstop for the last 5 minutes.
Think about the pressure they're pulling. Any top laner would be proud of that. You just type 3 top, and he's not even dying yet. So
That's
Forgotten
true.
Kingdom focusing hard, but not getting rewarded for it. And now Contingent Esports up more gold, up another kill.
That's true, although Red Side is starting to pull back the gold gap. You know, it's significantly lesser than it was a minute ago. So it looks like they have managed to get things for their pressure applied, but will it be enough is the question.
Yeah, I mean, PVS is a ticking time bomb there on the Karthus. We saw how well they play those scaling champions. They were the shining spot for a Forgotten Kingdom in game number 1. They had a revolutionary team fight, able to pick up so much on Kaisa, and I imagine they could do the same as long as Karthus is able to remain relatively even on farm with Pure Salt.
That's true, and that does seem to be the case here. I think he's farming quite evenly with the Jhin. It does remain to be seen how these team fights are going to start going once both teams have their one-item power spikes going for all their core members.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we may be seeing a team fight here on the horizon, less than a minute away from the next dragon spawn. And Nakhana, you were talking about how you wanted to see AFK prevent further pushes on through stacking those dragons. And I think this is the time for AFK to try to pounce. They're only down about 1,500 gold. They have solid priority in a lot of these lanes and great wave clear. And they have the ability to maybe answer back, get some kills, stop that dragon stacking, and from there, try to take the game away from Contingent.
Oh dear. And on the subject of things that I said, I was hoping to see some great Bard ults. I guess I shouldn't have said anything.
That one definitely not quite as good, Nakhana. We could agree on that. Unfortunately, Heroic Bumnay probably about 5 or 10 feet off of the mark. And now we're seeing a raw PVS Karthus ult, just trying to tick down some of the members of Contingent Esports. But honestly, they're all basically at full health still, and they're able to stabilize on their waves for the time being. So this is not going to be enough of a repellent for Contingent to give up a dragon.
Yeah, and I'm unsure if Red Side has just lost some of their morale already. I'm not sure why they're making desperate plays this early into the game. Definitely those two ults were way more valuable if saved.
Yeah, Heroic Bunny and Please Dodge Field Jungle trading blows. Pure Salt there in the backline doing a solid job whittling down onto the Sedge, but that is a tanky champion right now, and we are seeing the clustering of players around this Ocean Drake that has spawned up.
Yeah, they still do have some ults on the side of red side that could be quite game-changing. We have that Yone ult, that Sejuani ult. I doubt we're going to see much action from the top laners here just yet, but it looks like both teams are just going to back off for now, which I'm disappointed about, but
Yeah, big back there from a Forgotten Kingdom. And meanwhile, a lot of members of Contingent Esports is still around, and they're going to start up this dragon even on that control ward's vision. And so we are seeing the path in by Ionian Tempest and Heroic Bunny, but I don't actually think that a Forgotten Kingdom can get here in time. I hope that they just kind of peel off, go back to their lanes, and try to get an advantage elsewhere.
yeah, definitely looking like it. The Sejuani is already well on her way towards that Rift Herald, it looks like. To prevent any, or to even take it, it looks like. She's gone ahead and started that. So far, that will be 2 dragons for blue side, but 2 Rift Heralds for red side. Although we saw how dangerous it was last game for blue side to be allowed to get multiple drakes for free.
Yeah, and I mean, that's still definitely the case here. 2 dragons stacked at the 16-minute mark. Rift Herald going to be valuable for a Forgotten Kingdom. They also are able to claim first turret gold from top side, but now we got some action around this neutral objectives pit. Here's the jump on in, and we see Potato God hop right through the magical journey, get the W down, and that forces the ultimate out of a Bard, bringing balance to the universe in the form of an escaping a Forgotten Kingdom.
And that was a good Bard ult. I loved it.
Yeah, great peeling for sure. Basically stopped any forward momentum. Contingent just headed back off for the time being, although they want to lay siege to this mid-tier 1. Yeah, Heroic going in now. Yeah, nice stun up. This is actually a tough situation for Contingent. They're so close to tower, and while they are getting solid poke in, they're being traded back very heavily with those beams. Here comes the push forward. Ionian Tempest, too greedy. Potato God, too strong, and with the Ignite RE10, able to pick that kill up.
Yeah, gotta say, like, great plays from our Vex player here. It looks like they're no less deadly on Vex than they were on LeBlanc. An excellent fear on the Yone there, preventing him from getting anything out of his aggressive play.
So far, lead is still in the hands of Contingent Esports. It's not that big, though. I keep telling players at this point in games where you're down about 1.5k gold, this is where you need to continue to look to be relatively aggressive. I don't think you could just push back and allow for people to begin to stack that lead on top of you. And I think that Gorilla Jones heard me. The dive under tower. Pure Salt trying to get away, burns both of his summoner spells, and is still unable to survive the onslaught of the Viking man. And so that will be the first kill of the game claimed over for our Forgotten Kingdom. Potato God pushing topside. Cuddle Snuffle's a little bit pincered here. Here comes Ionian Tempest as well to try to shut down onto the Udyr from the backline, though. Potato God wants to go on, and Carthus ult is going to be channeled. Yone misses his R in kind, though, but now Heroic Bunny is rotating on up, gets a solid stun down onto the Viego. Maokai ult is going to try to root up multiple members of a Forgotten Kingdom, but that's not before the death of the Viego is to be had. And so far, it's a 1-0 topside for the side of a Forgotten Kingdom, and they want more. Ultimate goes down onto Maokai, who has to try to flash back. Ionian Tempest wants to give a chase. Heroic Bumne too low to continue to push forward, though. And so at the end of all of that, it will be a kill back onto the map. A Forgotten Kingdom able to withhold that top tier 1.
For sure, and it looks like both sides are definitely cutting their losses when it comes to these fights. Both sides are coming away with fewer kills than one might expect, but definitely red side seems to have a habit of really focusing down that top turret first, although I'm not sure how much good it's going to do them when mid still is standing strong.
I mean, right now, a Forgotten Kingdom is about even in gold with Contingent Esports. They've closed up any of those gold gaps that came from the kill deficit that they're in. So right now, Contingent definitely have to play a little bit more carefully. And if you give up a kill before we move on to a Drake number 3, this could be a Forgotten Kingdom's way back in. They can actually grab that mid-tier 1, get priority for themselves across the map, and really begin to bring this game home. Remember, Rift Herald is still in the hands of Heroic Bunny.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure we're going to see some more careful play from blue side. Like, I'm sure that Jin is not going to walk up to Olaf again anytime soon, you
I
know?
mean, honestly, I don't even know if Jin walking up to Olaf is the problem. Olaf just kind of runs whoever he cares down. Terrifying champion for sure. That's something I want to watch for as we move deeper into this game. It could be the answer for a Forgotten Kingdom around these objectives, just making sure that Gorilla Jones is there. Heroic Bunny in a lot of trouble, has a magical journey their way back towards that river bush, able to get out, but only at about 200 health. And now the Rift Herald, while crashing mid and getting that tier 1 over for a Forgotten Kingdom, it's going to be taken out pretty quickly. And now we are just a few moments before the next dragon spawns on up. Udyr pats down bot side to take care of Gorilla Jones, or at least D-push. And now the counter is ticking. Bard needs to get back to the fight in time to be able to claim this dragon on up. And meanwhile, everybody is posturing for a fight.
Yeah, this is a very interesting part of the game, it looks like.
Yeah, here's the rush in. Immediately, the fear comes down from RE10, though, and that's going to push Ionian Tempest far out of this fight. But from the backline, here comes the Olaf, and Potato God's going to go down. PBS gets that one. Here goes the Vex going golden now. Has to hide into the backline, able to peel away. Cuddle Snuffles comes on forward, tanking up Heroic Bumnay's attempts at stunning any of the members of Contingent Esports. And so for the time being, it's an even trade across the board. Olaf is no longer there. But I talked about Pure Salt's positioning before from the Pixel Bush. Here comes the snipes. Heroic Bumnay going down as well. So it's a 2-for-1 in favor of Contingent. And now they have claim over the river for the time being. No ability to push forward as Ionian Tempest gets rooted on up by the Jin W.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to continue to skirmish in this river. Hard to say.
Yeah, Heroic Bunny going to get caught out there. That's so rough for AFK. They're losing their jungler. They're losing their way to get back towards this Cloud Drake. And now Contingent Esports have Potato God back up, who is already rushing down onto the pit. And I think that Soul Point is all but blue squads.
Yeah, I've got to say, like, is Red Side going to be able to take even a single dragon away from Contingent this night? It remains to be seen, because so far, blue side has just had complete control of every single dragon.
And honestly, I like the focus quite a bit. Contingent Esports obviously on Soul Point for Cloud Soul this time around, which is a little bit less valuable in the grand scheme of things, but it still will be a huge boon to champions like Cuddle Snuffles' Udyr and Potato God's Viego. So don't count out the value that comes from these buffs for sure.
Oh yeah, and all the better for Jin to run away from that Olaf, you know?
Also true. I mean, that could be the tipping factor to allow for everybody to kite out this Olaf, kite out the Sejuani, and really just position as they so desire. So Contingent very, very happy with how this game is going right now. They're down maybe 1,000 gold, but when you look at the passive buffs that are given by each dragon, they're actually relatively up in terms of power level, and because of that, they're moving towards that Baron pit.
Yeah, and it remains to be seen if blue side is going to be able to make some big plays to pull back the objectives in their favor, as in the turrets across the map. Because currently, that's red side's, I suppose, their winning grace. I suppose that they do have a lot of control of the turrets, and that Olaf split push is going to be quite difficult to stop.
Yeah, and I mean, Gorilla Jones doing a fantastic job drawing pressure. Cuddle Snuffles really unable to answer back against the push right now in PVS, raining down Hellfire with her ultimate, making it all the harder. RE10 moving on down, trying to get down on to Gorilla Jones, who pops Ragnarok. He wants to try to at least trade one back before he runs off, and here comes the ult from the Vex, the root across the wall from Pure Salt as well. Vex picks that one up, and we see the curtain call now beginning to turn the fight in favor of Contingent. in. Here's the push on in. Cuddlestuffles goes golden. Ionian Tempest with a big ult though, and PBS able to kill the Udyr because of it. And now the chase down. Potato God heartbreakering over the wall, but the burn is ticking, and Heroic Bunny's going to help secure that. It's the triple kill for PBS.
Definitely an unexpected end to that fight. I've got to say, RE10 is definitely a force to be reckoned with here, despite Red Side trying to ban out a lot of their picks. But that Vex is definitely very scary, what with the ult and the resets and the phenomenal damage coupled with the fear.
Yeah, but speaking of scary, a Forgotten Kingdom won that last fight, and now they're looking to get the Baron. Ping's coming out. Everybody knows that they're on it. The teleport being channeled as well by PVS. He's going to try to walk on into the river as well, and both sides, I think, are looking for the re-engage. Please dodge Phil Jungle going up, trying to take everybody away from the big purple worm, is getting heavily beaten down alongside Cuddle Snuffles because of it. Cuddle Snuffles living off of the health given by the shield, and now it's the Sejuani caught out in the middle of nowhere. Pearsall goes on a rampage, able to pick that one up, and now you can't take the Baron at all. A Forgotten Kingdom has to get out a river, but now Heroic Bumday goes down as well. Gorilla Jones onto the backline, able to kill the Vex in return, but it's the triple kill so far for Pearsall. My man is dominating the Rift. He's played this Jhin so well every game. PBS goes golden, but this is just a way to buy time as the Quadra comes through for Pearsall.
Go, Jhin, go get that penta kill.
Back to regularly scheduled programming. Pearsall tried to get the penta. There it goes down on to the side of Contingent Esports, and now they are able to grab themselves a Baron and Nashor. What a play all around for the side of blue. They are able to turn the tide of this game. They have the gold benefit, and they're going to only get more now with this buff going into their pockets.
Yeah, and that was definitely just a moment of us being like, is he gonna get the penta? Is he gonna do it? And he did.
Yeah,
definitely red side in a bad spot right now, what with the 3 dragons, and they've lost that Baron as well. We see Potato God has left.
His job is done. He has gotten themselves the Baron buff, and so he leaves the game. I think he's going to reconnect here in just a few seconds.
He still seems to be moving, so perhaps
already back. Yeah, for sure. Crazy times all around, though. Contingent Esports coming out on top in that fight, able to get the turnaround off of some solid TP plays and a setup around that Baron. And now they're on their way towards Seoul. We see Forgotten Kingdom maybe just trading away this objective. Actually, they're rushing down that top side of the map, forcing Cuddle Snuffles up here to try to duke it out with Gorilla Jones once again. And you have 3 mid working down this tier 2.
Yeah, Gorilla Jones is definitely putting in a lot of work this game. We see him pushing in. Last fight, he nearly turned the tide single-handedly by entering in on the back line. But now it looks like he's in a spot of trouble top lane.
Yeah, incredible play so far. Cuddle Snuffles actually able to help chase down Gorilla Jones because RE10 is there. They're going to ride their ult on in, and even though Ragnarok makes this champion CC immune, they aren't immune from damage. RE10 gets that one, but an ult down onto the Vex will be enough to stop their reign of terror. Heroic Buddy once again finds themselves in the blender, though. Pearsall goes legendary, building off the pentakill that he just claimed, and now he wants more, the double-double up against the Bard. Here comes the ultimate from PVS, but that is just a way to delay the push on in. Everybody on the side of Contingent has scaled up. They are all super durable. Ionian Tempest has the ult to get away, but even then, I think that his time is nigh. He turns it around, gets the kill onto Potato God, though, and now heals off the red buff. And so Contingent Esports still able to skirmish hard, still able to get progress across the board, but some losses are coming back to bite them. Ionian Tempest still up, but now Pearsall with the 3rd shot, not even the execute, just able to burst this champion down from nothing.
Yeah, and that fight was looking a little iffy for blue side there, but the Baron minions, I think, did a lot of work that fight. The poor Karthus just got beaten to death by some purple casters.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right now, Contingent very much in the driver's seat, but it's not as much of a gold gap as we were witnessing in game number one, Nakhana. I think that a Forgotten Kingdom still has some fight left in them. Like I said, Cloud Soul, not the damning effect that Ocean Soul or Hextech Soul is. And so because of that, there still is a way for them to warm back into this, especially because you have such fantastic execute power. It makes it hard to grab Elder Dragon, which is the next thing up on the docket. PVS, if you could get a good ult off, if Ionian Tempest can ult into that pit and Heroic Bunny stays alive, I think that there is a way to turn this around for sure. That being said, once again, Sejuani caught all out. The ultimate goes down solely to make sure that the Jhin is kept out of the fight and that a re-engage can occur on top of them. But even so, Jhin doing so well to prance around all of these attacks. Finally, he will fall to Ionian Tempest, but Potato God able to get a kill back in return. Gorilla Jones onto the backline, though, doing so much to scare away the remaining members of Contingent. Cuddle Stuffles has to kite this out, going super low up against the Yone. And so at the end of the day, it's a 2-for-1 in favor of a Forgotten Kingdom, and they're going to use this time that they bought for themselves to push down mid.
Yeah, I was just about to say the one thing Red Side can really count on now is just waiting for the Jhin to step out of line and make a mistake. And that's their time to shine, which is exactly what just happened. It just remains to be seen whether they can get that done consistently or if Blue Side can, in fact, turn the tide back in their favor now.
Yeah, Cuddle Snuffles with the re-engage along the far side with Potato God, who's going to flash W forward onto PVS. PVS is being chipped low, but the turnaround, here comes Heroic Bunny and company. They're able to kill Potato God in kind, although Cuddle Snuffles will avenge their fallen comrade across the board, though AFK going far more even than expected in these sieges.
Yeah, the problem I think for Blue Side now is that their gold is concentrated on a very, very squishy person. Even with all his getaway tools, I believe he had a stopwatch which he has now sold as
Yeah,
it
but at the
fulfilled its
same time,
purpose.
PVS is willing to die during fights, and he's often able to do more damage because of it. But when you go for these much less clear 5v5s and you are just picking people off and then getting picked off yourself, it's not like you are able to use your passive to its fullest extent. And because of that, PVS has been struggling to get the big bursts that this champion is known for.
Yeah, and definitely we saw Bardo just come out narrowly missing the Jhin with his movement speed off the shot. But he can keep doing that, and sooner or later he's bound to catch the Jhin out, and it remains to be seen if Blue Side is able to answer back to that.
Yeah, and across the board right now, Contingent Esports is winning, don't get us wrong, but given that they have 10 kills up on a Forgotten Kingdom, that gold gap does not tell the whole story. I mean, honestly, a lot of the champions of AFK are scaled up, are incredibly scary, and it really is just down to raw macro right now to determine the outcome of this game. And speaking of which, Heroic Bubble too far forward, gets punished, trying to get some vision, will die, and now Potato God able to steal up the Bard's body, is able to just Heartbreakers after following through with a magical journey. Pearsall gets that kill, and the chase down because the Maokai ult is now to be had. PVS caught in the blender once more, tries to go golden, unable to do anything with the stasis. Ionian Tempest with ult cross back through, able to execute Pearsall because of it, but now it's only Heroic Bunny left alive, trying to fight their way back towards the base, back towards tower. The ace is going to come through. Contingent Esports going to emerge victorious.
What a wonderful game. Honestly, a lot more exciting than last game, and I wasn't expecting that. This time, both sides really gave a good fight, and it was hard to tell who was going to win because it all came down to just who was able to win one of those big fights, who gets caught out of place, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And with the race down of the Nexus turrets here and Heroic Bumnade, the only person to respawn fast enough, it is going to be a triumphant 2-0 claimed by the Contingent Esports Premier team here in the UML.
Well, congratulations to Contingent. I think they played today excellently. We even saw a pentakill from the Jhin.
Yeah,
Those
for
are
sure.
rare, but always nice to see.
Yeah, honestly, really great performance all around. Contingent looking so strong this week, bouncing back after a disappointing result against Illinois Blue in week number 1. I love the fact that Pearsall was just able to get on one of the preferred champions and just wreck face here. It's so nice to see the AD carry role truly carrying. And, it's often something that gets punished super hard here, but Pearsall, great front to back team fights, great coordination with the team as a whole, and honestly, also incredible macro, great shot calling for Contingent. They got every single dragon in these games to 4-0 soul claims. It's so impressive, and their movement across the map was just unparalleled by anything that AFK could throw at them.
For sure. And honestly, Red Side didn't do too badly either. Definitely that second game they managed to pull themselves back and really give a fight to Blue Side.
Yeah.
But they were unfortunately not victorious, but still props to them for trying.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I really couldn't ask for more from Contingent Esports this time around. The bounce back here in this regular season definitely shifts the needle for them. They're going to be performing incredibly well because this is a short structure. UML only has 3 regular weeks before we move on to a playoff, and that playoff is a pretty comprehensive system. So getting your wins while you can here, affecting your seeding, is just so valuable for them. And not only was it a win, but a 2-0 victory for themselves that I think makes me confident that they have the ability to go far here in the UML.
Well, wishing them all the best of luck in all their future games. I'm sure they can pull out some wonderful things, what with a mid laner like RE10 and an ADC like Pure Salt.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations to everybody. We're going to throw it over to an end for the night. Thank you so much, Nakhana, for being here with me, being my color caster through thick and thin. Those are some banger games to cast, and I would not have anyone else by my side doing so. Also, shout out to Uraazi, constantly bringing you the best in production for the amateur scene here, manning the helm, making sure that that pentakill will go down in history, getting some solid plays on the table for everybody. We couldn't have done this without him. We could have done this without you guys all viewing at home. Thank you so much for tuning in to Contingent Esports' Twitch channel. Make sure you join our Discord. Try to get up to date with everything that we are bringing on through in the amateur scene. It's not only the premier team that's making moves, but you got to see how we're performing in the VRS, in the BOL. It's all great fun, great stuff here. And we're trying to broadcast as much as possible to bring you that content. So make sure you guys stick around. But for tonight, we're going to head it on for it a close. Thank you so much once again and have a good one.